Your pain was training. You were being prepared for the battle of God. There are moments in life when the pain becomes so intense, so overwhelming, that we begin to question everything. We question our worth. We question our purpose. And most of all, we question God. We ask, why me? Why did I have to lose so much? Why did I have to feel abandoned, rejected, humiliated, and crushed over and over again? If God loves me, why did He allow the storm to rage for so long? Why did He allow the nights to be so dark, the silence to be so loud, and the battles to be so brutal? But what if I told you that the pain you endured was never pointless? What if I told you that everything that broke you was actually building you? That what felt like punishment was actually preparation? What if your suffering wasn't a sign of divine neglect, but a sign of divine selection? You see, soldiers of the light are not trained in comfort. Warriors of God are not molded in palaces. They are forged in the wilderness. They are refined in the fire. And they are chosen in the shadows. Most people want to be chosen, but they don't want the process of being prepared. They want the calling, but they don't want the crushing. They want the glory, but not the isolation that comes before it. What many fail to understand is that God does not raise warriors the way the world does. The world gives you medals after the battle, but God gives you scars before the battle to prove that you can survive. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every tear you cried alone, it wasn't to destroy you. It was training. It was the sharpening of your soul. You were never being broken down. You were being built. You see, you don't prepare for war in the middle of the fight. You train long before the trumpet sounds. God knew the war that was coming. He knew the darkness that would try to silence your light. And so He put you through a fire that you didn't understand, a season of suffering that didn't make sense, a level of pressure that would have crushed someone else, but not you. Because He wasn't just preparing you to survive. He was preparing you to lead. He was preparing you to speak with authority. He was preparing you to fight on behalf of others who are still asleep. So if you're here today and you're still wondering why you went through what you went through, let me tell you something very clearly. It was never for nothing. It was divine training. And now, your training is almost complete. The time is near. The battle is coming. And when it does, God needs you ready. Now let me show you what it all really meant. The hidden purpose of pain. Pain is a strange teacher. It speaks in a language that no one wants to learn, yet it leaves lessons that no soul ever forgets. When it enters our lives, it doesn't knock gently. It breaks through the walls, tears down everything we thought was secure, and demands our attention. We resist it at first. We cry out for mercy. We ask God to take it away. But the truth is, in the kingdom of God, pain is never wasted. It is never random. It is never meaningless. Pain is often the first sign that heaven has marked you for something greater. It is not the enemy of your destiny. It is the beginning of it. The pain you felt, the pain you may still be feeling, was not a curse. It was not punishment. It was preparation. It was divine training disguised as heartbreak, disappointment, rejection, and failure. And because it did not look like training, many of us misunderstood it. We thought we were being forgotten when we were actually being formed. Let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed that some of the most powerful people are also the ones who have suffered the most? It's not a coincidence. There is a law in the spiritual realm. The greater your calling, the deeper your crushing. Because before God can entrust you with influence, He must first ensure that you are unshakable, that your foundation is not built on applause, on success, or on other people's approval, but on truth, on purpose, and on fire-tested faith. You weren't being punished. You were being stripped of the illusions that kept you weak. You were being trained to stop begging for validation and to start walking in identity. You were being trained to endure storms without collapsing, to walk through fire and not be burned, to carry the weight of your calling without losing your mind. Many people want to be used by God, but they don't understand the price of that power. Power that comes without process is dangerous. Authority without suffering is empty. That's why God doesn't elevate those who avoid the fire. He raises up those who survive it. He calls forth those who have walked through nights of silence, through months of confusion, through years of unanswered prayers, and still chose to believe. You didn't survive by accident. You were kept alive by divine design. Your tears were not wasted. Your prayers were not ignored. Your suffering was not invisible. Every lonely night, every whispered cry, every day you got up even though you wanted to give up, it was all being recorded in the Spirit. and heaven was watching. You see, what breaks others only built you. What caused others to quit made you stronger. Because deep inside you, even when everything else was falling apart, there was a spark, placed there by God Himself, that refused to die. That spark is your divine calling. That spark is the reason hell tried to break you. That spark is the reason why pain was permitted. God was not trying to destroy you. He was trying to make sure you would never be destroyed, no matter what came against you. He was building you in a way the world couldn't see. While others were living on the surface, you were being prepared in the depths. And that depth, that's where your authority comes from. That's why you don't sound like everyone else. That's why you don't walk like everyone else. Because your pain shaped your posture. Your scars taught you to stand differently. And your wilderness birthed a wisdom that can't be bought, borrowed, or faked. There is a version of you that only pain could produce. Not the version that smiles to be accepted. Not the version that performs to be loved. But the version that knows who you are, even if no one else applauds. Even if no one else sees. Even if you are alone. Because the training that pain provides is sacred. It teaches you how to rely on God when you have nothing and no one else. It teaches you to hear His voice in the silence. It teaches you that even if everything is stripped away, you still have purpose. You still have value. You still have a future. And that's what makes you dangerous to the kingdom of darkness. Because now, they can't manipulate you with comfort. They can't control you with fear. You've already been through the worst. You've already faced the fire. And you're still standing. You've already been buried in darkness. And now, you've become the light. The pain didn't destroy you. It uncovered you. It pulled the real you to the surface. The warrior. The chosen. The voice of thunder that once whispered in weakness is now beginning to roar in authority. And it all began with pain. So the next time you look back on those seasons of heartbreak, betrayal, or confusion, don't ask why God allowed them. Ask instead, what did He build in you through them? Because the purpose of pain is not just to teach you something. It is to make you into someone. Someone with battle scars, but also battle wisdom. Someone who doesn't break under pressure, but rises in the fire. Someone who can stand in front of others and say, I know what it's like to be broken, but I also know what it's like to be rebuilt by the hand of God. You were not just going through pain. You were being prepared by it. You weren't just suffering. You were being shaped. And now, the world will see what heaven already knows, that your pain was your training. And your training was holy. Because you, my friend, were being prepared for the battle of God. How heaven trains warriors in silence. The world trains its champions in the spotlight, but heaven trains its warriors in silence. And that silence? It can be deafening. It can make you feel like God has forgotten your name. Like your prayers are bouncing off the ceiling. Like your cries are falling into a void. But let me tell you something. The silence was never God's absence. It was His strategy. Because when God is silent, He is not idle. He is focused. And when He is preparing a warrior, He removes every distraction. He isolates. He strips. He hides you, not to punish you, but to protect you, until you are ready. That's what many people don't understand. There is a sacred isolation that comes before revelation. Before you can lead others, you must first be alone with yourself. Before you can walk in public power, you must be tested in private pain. God is not interested in building up your image. He's interested in building up your core. So He removes the noise, the friends, the comfort, the validation, not to make you lonely, but to show you who you really are when there is no audience. Because real strength is not proven when people are watching. It's revealed when no one is. And it's in that hidden place, the wilderness, the cave, the prison, the pit, that God trains His fiercest warriors. Think of every great warrior in Scripture. Joseph wasn't trained in Pharaoh's court. He was trained in a pit, in a prison, alone. Moses didn't become a leader in the palace. He was shaped in the wilderness, far from applause, far from affirmation. David wasn't crowned king before he was hunted like a criminal. And Jesus? He spent 30 years in silence before 3 years in ministry. Why? Because heaven values preparation more than performance. It's not about how fast you rise. It's about how deep your roots go. And roots? They grow underground. In darkness. In silence. Unseen. So if you've been hidden, misunderstood, passed over, left behind, don't curse the season. Honor it. It means God is still shaping you. Still working in you. Still refining what the world can't see. Because the battle he's preparing you for isn't just physical, it's spiritual. You're not being trained to fight with fists. You're being trained to discern spirits, to recognize lies, to pierce through confusion with truth. And that kind of training, it requires solitude. It requires silence. Because you can't hear the voice of God clearly when you're addicted to noise. So he quiets your world, not to hurt you, but to sharpen you. So when you finally speak, it won't just be your voice. It'll carry the weight of heaven behind it. Do you know what silence builds? Discernment, endurance, clarity. You stop depending on the crowd and start depending on the Spirit. You stop chasing popularity and start chasing presence. You start hearing things others miss, seeing things others ignore. And that's exactly what a warrior of God needs. Not a sword made of steel, but a heart trained by stillness. A spirit forged in fire. A voice that doesn't shake when darkness rises. Because when you've been through enough silence, enough betrayal, enough emptiness, when you finally open your mouth to speak, the atmosphere shifts. Not because of who you are, but because of what you survived. Because of who trained you. And how. You see, the most dangerous warriors are the quiet ones. The ones no one saw coming. The ones who were hidden, overlooked, underestimated. The ones who didn't fight for attention, but were trained in surrender. Because surrender builds spiritual stamina. It teaches you to say, even if no one sees me, I will still obey. Even if no one believes in me, I will still believe in him. That kind of obedience is rare. That kind of faith is dangerous. And that's exactly why you had to be trained in silence. Because God is trusting you with a battle that requires more than just charisma. It requires character. The silence you went through was your classroom. The loneliness was your textbook. The tears were your final exam. And every time you chose to keep going, when you didn't feel strong, when you didn't feel worthy, when you didn't feel seen, you were passing the test. You were proving to heaven that your worship wasn't dependent on your feelings, that your obedience wasn't based on your mood, that your loyalty wasn't for sale. That's what God looks for. Not perfection, but perseverance. Not loud faith, but lasting faith. The kind that holds on in the dark. The kind that doesn't need an answer to still believe in the promise. The kind that gets up again and again, even when the world walks away. And now, whether you know it or not, you're no longer the same person who entered the fire. You've been changed, not by applause, not by comfort, but by silence. You've learned to walk with God when no one else was around. You've learned to stand when everything in you wanted to fall. You've learned to listen, not just with your ears, but with your spirit. And that's what makes you ready. That's what makes you dangerous. Because while others have been trying to build platforms, you've been forged in presence. And the presence of God will do for you what no spotlight ever can. So do not despise the silent seasons. Embrace them. They are the places where God does his deepest work, where the flesh is stripped, where the ego dies, where the warrior awakens. And when the silence finally breaks, when the moment comes where God says, now, you won't rise like everyone else. You will rise with a roar that was birthed in stillness, a fire that was lit in the darkness, a voice that carries the authority of one who has walked with God, not just in public, but in private. That is how heaven trains its warriors. And you, whether you knew it or not, have been in training all along. The awakening, when you realize who you are, there comes a moment in every warrior's life when the fog begins to clear, when the confusion, the questions, the pain, they don't vanish, but they start to make sense. And in that moment, something extraordinary happens. You awaken. You no longer see yourself as the broken, abandoned, rejected person you once believed you were. You begin to recognize the truth, that you were never just a victim of your circumstances. You were a weapon being forged in fire. You were a soldier being equipped in secret. You were a chosen one who had to be crushed so the oil inside you could flow. And now, your eyes are opening. You are starting to remember who you are. Not who the world told you to be. Not who your pain tried to reduce you to. But who heaven always knew you were. This is the moment where everything shifts. Not because your situation has changed, but because you have. You no longer walk like someone who's lost. You no longer speak like someone who's unsure. There is a power rising inside of you. Not arrogance, not pride, but divine authority. The kind that comes from surviving what should have killed you. The kind that comes from standing when everything in you wanted to lie down and quit. The kind that comes from realizing you were not just built to endure, You were built to conquer. The world didn't see you coming. They misread your silence as weakness. They misjudged your suffering as failure. They thought the rejection would break you, that the trauma would silence you, that the betrayal would make you bitter. But instead, it made you bold. It made you real. It made you dangerous to darkness. Because now, you don't speak from theory. You speak from experience. You've been in the valley. You've walked through fire. You've stood in the storm. And you discovered something most people never do. God was with you the entire time. And even more than that, He was working through it. This is the awakening. The revelation that your story was never just about survival. It was about transformation. You were never just supposed to make it out. You were supposed to emerge with vision, with wisdom, with fire in your bones. You are not who you used to be, and you should never apologize for that. The pain redefined you. The process resurrected you. You didn't go through all of that to play small now. You didn't endure the silence just to return to comfort. You were made for more, and now you know it. When you awaken, you no longer ask for permission to be powerful. You stop shrinking to fit into places you've outgrown. You stop doubting what God already confirmed. You realize you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to rise, to lead, to disrupt, to deliver. You don't walk into rooms hoping to be accepted. You walk in knowing you carry something sacred. You walk in knowing your scars speak louder than titles. Your presence carries weight, not because you're trying to be someone, but because you already are someone. Someone who was tested, someone who was trained, someone who survived, and now, someone who is ready. There's a fire that awakens in the soul when you realize you were chosen. A holy fire, one that doesn't burn out with criticism, one that doesn't die when others walk away. It grows stronger in rejection. It thrives in adversity. It was placed in you for a reason, to illuminate the darkness around you, to awaken others through the example of your life. And that fire? It's not just passion, it's purpose. You are beginning to understand that everything you've been through is not just about you. It was about who you're becoming and who you're going to reach. Because chosen ones are not chosen to sit in comfort. They are chosen to shake the earth. They are chosen to break cycles, destroy lies, and set captives free. You didn't survive just to build a better life for yourself. You survived to become a lighthouse, a sign, a trumpet in the hands of heaven. And now that you know who you are, there's no going back. Now that your eyes are open, you can't pretend to be blind. Now that your spirit has been set on fire, you can't return to lukewarm living. This is what the battle has produced in you, a new identity, a sacred boldness, a resilience that cannot be manufactured or mimicked. You carry weight in the spirit now. You carry revelation. You carry the authority of someone who has fought through hell and come out holy. You've stopped begging for peace and started walking in power. You've stopped apologizing for your anointing and started embracing it. And the world won't understand you, because you weren't made to be understood. You were made to stand out. You were made to break the mold, to defy the odds, to walk in the fullness of who God says you are. You are awakening, not into comfort, but into calling. You are stepping out of survival mode and into supernatural clarity. You are realizing that the voice you tried to silence, the dreams you tried to bury, the strength you didn't know you had, all of it was waiting for this moment. You were waiting for you, the real you, the awakened you, the warrior, the prophet, the storm walker, the fire breather, the one who doesn't flinch anymore when trials come, the one who doesn't second guess when truth must be spoken. You are no longer in hiding. Heaven has released you. The veil has been torn. The roar has returned to your spirit. The tears have been turned into oil. And your identity is no longer shaped by your past. It is anchored in your purpose. You know now who you are. And nothing will ever be the same. Now, step into the battle. God needs you ready. Now that you've awakened, now that you've remembered who you are, there's no more room for hesitation. No more time to shrink back. No more delay. You didn't go through everything you went through just to stand on the sidelines and watch the world burn. You were trained for something greater. You were forged in fire for a purpose. And that purpose is not passive. It's not safe. It's not soft. It is divine warfare. You were prepared for the battle of God, and the time to step into it is now. This battle isn't against people. It's not against politics, opinions, or human enemies. This is a spiritual war. It's a war for souls, for truth, for light in a world drowning in darkness. And whether you like it or not, you've been conscripted into this fight. Not because of your qualifications, but because of your calling. Because you carry something the darkness fears. You carry fire. You carry truth. You carry the sound of heaven in your voice and the authority of battle-tested faith in your bones. You may not have asked for this fight, but it was written into your destiny before you were born. There's a reason you were crushed, abandoned, misunderstood, betrayed. It wasn't just life being cruel. It was hell trying to stop you before you discovered your power. Because once you know who you are, the enemy loses his grip. Once you understand the reason for your pain, you become unstoppable. And now that you see clearly, you can no longer pretend to be blind. Now that you feel the fire rising in your chest, you can no longer sit in silence. There are chains to break, lies to destroy, people to rescue, and God needs you in position. This is your battlefield, not a place, but a moment, a calling, a divine assignment. And it requires everything you've got. Not perfection, but surrender. Not loudness, but clarity. Not popularity, but obedience. This is not the time to blend in. This is not the season to water yourself down. God is not asking for a version of you that pleases the crowd. He is calling for the real you, the one he trained in silence, the one he forged through fire, the one who has scars that now shine like armor. There is a war happening in the unseen realm, a war for the hearts and minds of this generation. And your voice, your testimony, your fire, it matters more now than ever. You are prepared to walk into rooms where lies have ruled for too long and shift the atmosphere. You are prepared to stand in places where compromise has become normal and reintroduce righteousness. You are prepared to walk beside the broken, not just to sympathize, but to set them free. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You need to be rooted. Rooted in truth. Rooted in identity. Rooted in the authority that only heaven can give. And let me tell you this, hell knows who you are now. Every trial you survived made you more dangerous. Every storm that failed to drown you became a weapon in your hand. Every time you got back up, you shook the kingdom of darkness. And now, when you walk, you don't walk alone. You walk with angels beside you. You walk with heaven backing you. You walk with the mantle of one who has been chosen, refined, and released. And the enemy hopes you'll stay distracted, stay afraid, stay silent. But you won't. Because the time for silence has passed. This is your moment to fight, not with anger, but with purpose, not with hate, but with holy fire. You fight by living fully awake. You fight by refusing to believe the lies you once accepted. You fight by being who God called you to be, unapologetically, boldly, relentlessly. You fight by speaking the truth even when it costs you. You fight by shining light even when the world celebrates the dark. You fight by refusing to bow to fear, even when fear surrounds you on every side. You are a warrior. You are a vessel. You are a threat to hell's agenda. Not because of who you think you are, but because of who God says you are. Because of what you've endured. Because of how you chose to rise. So step into the battle, fully clothed in the truth of your training. Fully aware that every painful moment was worth it. Fully committed to being the one who doesn't break when the war intensifies. Let the world call you extreme. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away. You weren't built for comfort. You were built for combat. You weren't made to impress. You were made to impact. And now, with heaven watching and hell trembling, it's your time to move. This is not the end of your pain. It's the beginning of your power. It's not the close of your story. It's the rise of your mission. You were trained for this. Anointed for this. Called for this. You are not weak. You are not lost. You are not forgotten. You are ready. Now go, step into the fire. Step into the battlefield. Step into the calling. And let the world see what heaven already knows. A warrior has awakened.